During this season of Thanksgiving, we are reminded that working together as a community to help those in need or less fortunate shouldn't just happen on an annual basis in late November. It should be a year-round effort that never takes a day off. Retired Martin Luther King Elementary School teacher Louise Lippe has adhered to this philosophy for more than a decade. Her community garden, which donates fresh produce to the local Hands of Hope food pantry, has been a yearly labor of love. But not just for her. The students, faculty, and staff of MLK gladly give up their time to assist with the toiling, sowing, and of course, the annual summer harvest.
We have this harvest, we have it every year, and we grow the produce for the Hands of Hope, which is run by Jackie Godesky, and it's called the Hands of Hope Food Bank. And it takes care of the needy people that we have in Edison. I, Louise Lippe, am a retired teacher of this fine school. And as you can see, I'm still doing this arduous task. Since schools are expected to set examples for the students and the community, I thought it befitting that Frank and I do this with the strong cooperation from the support of the Board of Education. They pay for the water and maintenance of the sprinkler system. Our principal, Mrs. Wilton, helps out with some funds to support the fertilizer and the seeds from Territorial Seed Company, which grows these excellent vegetables. Isn't this wonderful? The grounds crew, gosh, I couldn't be anywhere without them. If it weren't for them, they till the garden in the end of November before the ground freezes, and then they till it again in very early spring, like the end of March, the first week in April. And the custodians, you see the result of them, their work. They weed whack to keep the garden as free as possible of the weeds on the outside. They mow the lawn so I can get into this garden. They are my right hand here because I don't have to come back and forth every day. I also need to thank the Home Depot on Route 1 in Edison. They donate $100 worth of plants each spring so that I can get a head start on the garden. So most of the stuff gets planted by seed, but they give me the little plants, like the squashes and the peppers, so that I don't have to bother with that. When I get the plants from Home Depot, they usually have 5 or 6 little plantings in the cup they give you. So what I do is I take them home and I separate them, and I put each one in a pot of its own with mushroom dirt. And before you know it, in 2 weeks' time, the plant has grown, and now instead of 100 plants, guess what? You have 400 plants, which is great, just great. And then I wish to thank Bartell's Garden Center in Clark, because without his advice, I don't know whether the garden would do as well. And they also gave me a free bag of seeds, even though it was year 2012. Many of them came up, so I was able to supplant the plants that the critter happened to eat, so we're all on course. So the beans are the Kentucky Blue, the Blue Lake, the yellow is the Helda that you'll see on the other fence. And then I even have sweet peas. And then of course, you get something like this, but you know what? A weed may be a devil in a garden, but when you're growing beans, it helps the beans climb. So it doesn't take up much, it doesn't have much of a root system. So I usually leave it so the vines get a gripper. These are the Helda and the Golden Marie. These two snap and are tender. And you're supposed to grow them like this because they're supposed to have the bean to eat, not so much the outside. It's a little tougher. I don't particularly care for it as much, but Frank likes it. This is the other ones. See, that's a nice young tender bean. Yep, it's tender. It's not like rubber. It's good. They cook well too. The last person I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, and he's new on the list, is Patel's Cash and Carry on Oak Tree Road in Islip. I taught his children. They're alumni from this school. But I called him up and I said, you know, Raj, if you have some old potatoes, I need them, especially ones with eyes. Because you see, you have to have potatoes in order to grow potatoes. You cut them in half, you put them in, and before you turn around, you have a whole potato patch. Last year, the tomato plant broke. So not throwing it out, because I don't throw anything out, I stuck it in the water, and about 2 weeks later, the stem grew a root system. Well, that happened to be one of the most productive tomato plants ever. And the tomatoes are interesting. We have Roma, Celebrity, San Marzano. Those are the great ones for sauce. And what was the other one? Aster. That's a good one also. And these are all the result of my splitting the pots. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you about the cabbages is that the Bonnie Plant Farm down in Atlanta, Georgia donates to all the school systems cabbages, and they're called school cabbages. And they were delivered in the cold, early spring. And they told me that the cabbages can go right in the ground because they can take a cold earth temperature, like 35, 38 degrees. So in they went as soon as the grounds crew rototill the property. Yours, buddy. Big smile. Something to note about the coloration of the plants when the temperatures drop so low. I mean, they've even dipped to 30 degrees, but the cabbages withstood it, surprisingly. And the leaves turned like a gray blue. Unusual to see, because usually all plants are green. But as soon as the temperatures started to rise, it's almost like a thermometer. The green started to come up. So this is the result. That's a pretty one. I know that potatoes grow under the ground. Well, if they grow under the ground, that means I have ground on top. So I had about 12 extra cabbage plants, and I planted them on top of the potato patch. Yes, the potatoes grew their vines, their plants, their stems, their greenery, so I knew that was working underground. And then I made these 10-inch mounds right down the middle of the potato patch, and they grew beautifully. They really did. So what does that tell me? I can get 2 for the price of 1 planting in the summer, and I double up my ground space. So you can try it too at home. What grows underground stays underground. Put something on the top. The cabbages are short-lived. I think they're like 85 days. That's it, done. The potatoes go until October, November. The more you leave them in, the more they multiply. The other thing I did was, if you'll see in here, I planted tomato plants. I'd never grown tomato plants in these areas, so they did very well too. They're in between the cabbages. Why? Because I'm going to be taking out the cabbages, and that means that that ground, if I didn't put the tomatoes in, would be laying fallow. That really kills me right to the heart, not to have ground growing something. So now I have these tomato plants. Where did you get your love of gardening?
Well, it all started in like 2nd grade when you grew plants, and I really liked them. And then I started doing this garden. And then when I got experience with this, I came home and did one at my house. So yeah, and I'm really prosperous, getting lots of cabbages and peppers and all.
Do you have tomatoes this year?
No.
No tomatoes this year? The heat, of course, is great for ripening things. As you see, I have some tomatoes coming up. And we pulled out a zucchini squash, so I know the zucchini plants are working, the yellow squash, a pepper, and a tomato. So that's it. I hope you have also tried gardening, maybe learning some interesting information. Once again, I can't tell you enough that if you use the mushroom dirt, it's excellent in its nutrients. Yes, you have to replenish it every 5 years. Okay, you could do that. They sell bags of it, but the bags have to be mixed with soil. So I got the mushroom dirt from Bartell's in Scotch Plains, their bulk supply division, and this is the result of mushroom dirt. You don't have to fertilize. It's in the ground. So thank you again. Hope to see you next year. Happy gardening, and have a nice, warm summer. Bye.